having completed the basic terminology, today we are starting a very important facet of international relations, that is trying to understand what happened in the medieval times in the European continent that actually shaped the international relations landscape across the globe. So we are going back in times, maybe 500-600 years back, where we are trying to cover the duration from 1453. From 1453 we will come to a time scale of 1907. In today's 2.5 hours class, our intention is to travel in time from 1453 to 1907 in a particular area called Europe. See, knowing history to understand why the world interacts with the rest of the world in a particular way, knowing the history is very, very important. So the basic tenets of how these democratic values, the seeds of democracy have been sowed in the nation states, we need to understand, and that is how you will understand how these democratic values spread across the globe. Today America claims to be the protector of the democracy in the world, right? But the democracy never started in America. So democracy started somewhere here. From there it spread to America, right? So but today America happens to be the flag bearer of the democracy in the world. Nobody asked it. No nation said please you be the protector of the world, but they have taken that onerous responsibility on them by the grace of God, and they are continuing to do that, okay? Without knowing what is Hindi, right? Yeah. Now see, one thing you have to understand, there is a word called narrative. This is very, very important dimension. See, narrative is how basically a country tells about its own story. Very important. Narrative is nothing but how a country tells about its own story. Tells about its story. So when it is about telling of the story, it is not only the country, that is the government, it may be a renowned personality who can also talk about the narrative of that country. It could be the government, it can be any association or body of people, it can be the people of that country, or it can be a particular religious entity also. So the narrative of a country, that is the story, narrative is nothing but story. The story of a country can be told by anybody. It could be the government itself, it could be one renowned personality, maybe a religious head or something, or anybody who is in the NGO, or anybody who is revered as a very renowned personality in that community. It could be an association of people, maybe a body of people. They also can, give the narration of the country. It can be the common people also, and lastly it can be a religious entity. And when it came to Europe, the narrative of Europe, the story of Europe in the medieval times was primarily done by this particular body, which was famously called as the church. Very important. So the narrative of basically the entire country, how the country has to be governed, what should be the society, what should be the landscaping of the society, how the economy of the country should be run, how the king should behave, how the people should behave, what is the message of God. All this narrative, what is happening in the storyline of the entire landscape of Europe, was controlled by one particular entity, which was called church. Very important, right? So we'll see the narrative of church in two dimensions. One is how this narrative of the Europe was influenced on the society part and the economy part. Two different dimensions, right? When it comes to the society, we are trying to talk about the narrative of the church, that is how the church directed the society's conduct should be, how the church directed the conduct of the society should be in the medieval European times, right? Please be attentive. What the church used to say, that the first and foremost thing, when it came to a common man, the established narrative was whatever the church will say, man had no authority to question. Man had no authority to question the narrative of the church. What does it mean? It means whatever the church or the top religious clergy used to tell to man, he had to accept that without questioning the authority of the church. It means he had no
accountability, no rationality.
Firstly, he had no thinking. He cannot think. If the church says the sun rises in the west, the man should not question the authority of the church and should accept that the sun rises in the west. Secondly, it also says, somebody had used the word, that there is a complete absence of rationality. So there is no rational thinking present there. So in this context, what happened was the church controlled the entire society landscape. The church did not control the common man only. The church also controlled the king also. So the ruling body, the king, was also under the direct command and control of the church. So here you can see that not only a common man in the societal landscape, even the king was under the complete control of the church. When the king was under the complete control of the church, it means that firstly the church decided who will be the king. The church decided what the king will do, and the church decided what the king will not do. Very important. Will not do. It means the church had a complete control on the executive power of the church, right, of the king. First, by trying to control the mind of the man. Obviously, the king is also man only, right? So indirectly, the church controlled the mind of the king also, wherein the church decided firstly who would be the king, then what he will be doing, what he will not be allowed to do. So in a way, indirectly, if you see, the entire society was under the tight control of church. Under the tight control of church. One important narrative, I think in one of the opening discussions I spoke, the church gave was about the land beyond the waters. Important narrative about the land beyond the waters. Water is basically your oceans. One narrative about the land beyond the oceans, church gave this particular narrative. What church said was, say for example, you are a man standing at the shore and this is your line of sight. This is the what you call line of sight till when you can see. This is all water. This is all water. Beyond what a man can see standing at the shore is a deep well. It is like if you try to go beyond this particular point, you will fall in this steep well. It is like इसके आगे जाओगे तुम्हारी मौत है, right? Why the church did was the intention of the church trying to control this particular what you call expansionary or voyeurism of voyaging capability of the humans was, the church did not want this particular man or the king to interact with the people on the lands beyond the waters. Because the moment this interaction will get established, that is when the questioning authority will start. So they create a narrative, the narrative about land beyond waters, that there is no land beyond waters. Very important. There is no land beyond waters and there are no humans beyond waters. Very, very important dimension of the European history. The church said there is no land, there is no what you call no man beyond this particular waters. So the church in a way controlled the entire landscape of the society from the social dimension part of it, right? The moment the church said there is no land beyond these waters, what is the intention of the church? As I said, it did not want the common man or the king or the voyagers to interact with the societies beyond these waters, so that tomorrow they will start questioning the authority of the church. So that is how, with an intention to have a tight grip on the entire dimensions of the societal landscape, the church denied the right of thinking to a man to go beyond what his eyes can see. Right? So that is how the church tried to control the mind of the man. That is how the church tried to control the mind of the man. Now, from the economic landscape, very very important, from the economic landscape, whatever we have covered till now was the societal landscape. It was not only the societal landscape that the church controlled, the economic landscape also church had a complete control, where the church decided to trade with whom, to not to trade with whom, to trade in what, to not to trade in what, and how to trade and how not to trade. These all dimensions were also under the complete control of the church. See, if you see Europe on the world map, say for example, if this is your Europe and if this is your Asia, if this is your Europe and this is your Asia, in between these two countries, in between these two land masses, one important landmass was there. This was held by the Ottomans, right? The Ottoman Empire, right? The modern day Turkey and all, right? So this was the land which belonged to the Ottomans. So whatever economic trade the Europeans were doing, they were basically trading with the Asians through the intermediaries. And who are these intermediaries? Yeah. Through the intermediaries. And who were these intermediaries? The Ottomans, right? So when the Europe was trading with Asia, because we all speak the spice route, the silk route and other things, when this trading was happening, this was happening primarily through a particular entity called Ottomans, who were the bridge between Europe and Asia. And this trade was primarily a land-based trade, land trade. It means they were crossing the borders on land, not waters, right? Now, one dimension you need to understand was, it means to say that somewhere the Europeans did not have a direct link with Asia, but they traded with Asia through these intermediaries. And what these Ottomans did was, he used to buy from here, buy from Asia and sell it in Europe. And whatever he was doing obviously on a commission, Say for example, he buys that particular product for 10 rupees and sells in Europe for say 20 or 30 or 50 rupees, whatever it is. So in this bargain, as an intermediary, the Ottoman was earning huge profits. The Ottoman Empire was earning huge profits. Now we'll go back to our concept. If you are earning huge profit, if you are this particular country, say Ottoman Empire, because of your economic prowess, did the balance of power shift or not? Yes? You were earlier, this was your economic prowess, but because of this trade, your economic prosperity, the economic strength or the economic prosperity widened. Now, if this economic prosperity widens, what will happen? What is the next stage of this thing? What is the balance of power getting disturbed after there is one country which is getting economically powerful? What is the next move? The military strength will increase. Because of this role of intermediary, having earned so much of profits in high numbers, the Ottomans started to exert economic superiority over the Europeans. and they decided the terms of the trade with Europeans. So the Europeans were kind of completely dependent on the Ottomans for trading with the Asia and the products from Asia. It was both buying and selling. It could be both ways. It could be buying from here and selling from here. So in both the events, this guy got the best of the profits. Now, because of the increased economic prowess, gradually the Ottomans started increasing their military strength. And the moment economy is supporting, you got military weapons, the next stage is to go for, somebody use the word, expansion. Consolidation of more and more area under your control. The moment this happened, what the Ottomans did was, they started expanding. They started both westward expansion and also eastward expansion. So this was referred to as westward expansion. And this was referred to as your eastward expansion. Now tell me whether once this has happened, what did it lead to in the surroundings? Excellent. It led to insecurity. People started questioning the economic assertiveness of the Ottomans. The European countries especially started questioning the economic assertiveness of the Ottomans. Then finally Ottomans one day decided the area which was the center of, the point from where the contact was established between Europe and Asia was a city called Constantinople. Gradually, the Ottomans took complete control of the city of Constantinople. This event in the global history, that is the European history, is known as an event called the fall of Constantinople. The fall of Constantinople. This happened in the year 1453. Very, very important event in the history of entire mankind, because it changed the face how the man started interacting with the rest of the world. So this particular event came to be known in the history of mankind as the fall of Constantinople, to whom it fell to the hands of the Ottoman Turks. So this point of 1453 is considered to be the rise of Ottomans. Very important. It was definitely fall of Constantinople, but in a way indirectly it was the rise of Ottomans. The rise which started in 1453, you will be taught about the Ottomans history. This finally came to the end in the year 1923, when your modern day Turkey was born out of this particular territory.
Looks like the area already belonged to Ottomans.
Yeah, this area belonged to Ottomans, but this point was not under the Ottomans. That was an independent territory. The Constantinople was independent territory, but the Ottomans were doing trade in this particular territory, where they were intermediaries between Europe and Asia. But otherwise there was no military assertiveness on that particular area. There was no control of that particular area. They were only using that area as a trade point. But the moment they grew in strength and economic strength and the military prowess, they took over the entire city of Constantinople, and people started fleeing. The people of Constantinople started fleeing. This particular event gave rise to two things. One is the fall of Constantinople, the other is the rise of Ottomans, which continued from 1453 and finally ended in the year 1923. Approximately 500 years of civilization. 1923. Finally the Ottoman Empire completely fell and the modern day Turkey was born in this particular area. Now, are Europeans happy about this? We said that there is complete insecurity. That is one. One is insecurity. The second is now the trade route has been blocked. The trade route has been blocked. Now can anybody answer why they blocked the trade route which gave them so much of money?
So that they have to
alliance, so that the both countries cannot.
they have to follow the instructions of this people.
Further weaken euro.
Right? They are getting money, no? If you block the trade route, the money will stop. But why did they go ahead with that?
They have to come to a negotiation.
This is when they felt that I don't want this difference. I want it completely. I don't want to live on commission. 10 रुपए से मैं खजूर खरीद के थक गया हूँ, because that is the area where khajur is grown. I don't want this khajur. I want to know how this khajur is produced. I want to completely control the manufacturing and sale of khajur. I don't want to live on 10 rupees commission or 20 rupees commission, right? So the greed for more finally led to this particular event, which in the international history came to be known as the fall of Constantinople, right? Now this particular event did something in Europe. This particular event did something in Europe. I told you Europe, somebody is controlling something. The church is controlling the society and the economy both. The church is controlling the society and the economy both. Now both the dimensions are under question because of this particular incident. You have to trade. You cannot survive without products, groceries. Every day you need that what you call Dove soap. Without that you will not survive. But the Dove soap comes from Asia only. What to do? And the narrative of the church stopped you from getting into the sea, right? So, but you need trade, and these guys are not ready to trade with us. As what you call intermediaries, they say that no, nothing doing, you will not get this. So now, under this particular circumstances, some voyagers ventured out of the sea, ventured out into the sea. Definitely this has happened without the permission of the church. Some voyagers, they were clandestinely, secretly sponsored by some kings. They set out to sail into the waters. When they set out to sail into the waters, if suppose this was Europe, some reached here who found America. Some reached here who found Latin America. Some reached here who found Africa. Some skirted this and found India. Some skirted India and found some people went down and found Australia. If I have to put this in one word, this particular voyage led to something known as geographical discoveries, also loosely called as the knowledge of distant lands, the knowledge of distant cultures, the knowledge of distant people. For the first time, through these geographical discoveries, Europe came to know about the existence of the distant lands. Here they went, they found different people. Here they went, they found different people. Here they came, they found completely different people. Completely different people. They took some specimens also when they went back. बोला दुनिया को दिखाना ऐसे भी लोग जीते हैं, ठीक है? So they took some specimens from India. Then they skirted India. They found Southeast Asia and Australia. And if you see historically, this is how the entire colonization is also landscaped. How it happened, we'll come to that. But if you see historically, the entire colonization also landscaped. Then we try to understand how the geographical discoveries led to colonization of the world. A direct question in UPSC on two occasions. Describe how the geographical discoveries led to colonization of the world. Right? So this is how the geographical discoveries happened. As I told you, all this happened without the permission of the church. Right? Now, coming back to church and coming back to Europe. When these voyages returned to Europe, when these voyagers after their catch, whatever trade they did and whatever discoveries they did, when they went back to Europe, for the first time, when these voyagers interacted with the people, when these voyagers interacted with the kings, this is when they said that for the first time they made a statement that the narrative of the church is wrong. The narrative of the church is completely false. Whatever church told us that तुम इसके आगे जाओगे पानी में डूब जाओगे और तुम्हारी मौत है, nothing like that happened. We voyaged beyond what we could see. We continued our voyage and we found distant land, we found distant cultures and distant people. This is the proof. जो 3 लड़के ले गए थे ना इंडिया से, उनको दिखाया लोगों को, देखो 3 नमूने, एक बिहारी, एक यूपी का और एक पंजाब का, ये 3 नमूने हम लेके आए अपने साथ, देखो. This is what is there in the distant lands. Right? Now, when the narrative of the church was questioned for the first time, narrative of the church was questioned for the first time. Who questioned the narrative? The voyagers. And the seeds of questioning were for the first time sown in the minds of the people. When the people started questioning the church, whatever till now you told is incorrect. There are distant lands and the water does not fall into a deep well. So why did you do this to us? There is one more entity here. The church, the people, one more entity, this guy, king. Because he was also told about this narrative, right? But as I told you, he was under the complete control of the church. He did not know how to react to this. On one side, the voyagers are telling this, and the other side, the church is telling, don't believe these voyagers. Right? The church is trying to tell whatever these voyagers are telling is false narrative. Then the voyagers questioned the church. बोला तुमको पता भी है क्या? Do you even know what is there? Have you ever gone yourself there? Who told you that there is no land beyond the waters? They said the God told. Well, how? What's up? That's what they say. What's up? We have gone on ground. We don't believe a what's up. So that is how the questioning of the church authority happened for the first time. And because it was benefiting the king, because they were doing what? The king will get a share in the trade, right? Despite opposition from the church, the kings continued to support the voyagers, which resulted in this over a period of time. Going against the directives of the church, the king supported the voyagers, which resulted in these geographical discoveries over a period of time. Right? So the dimension of the church came into question for the first time in the dimension of your trade. That there are distant people and the water does not fall into the well and we can trade with them through the sea. We do not need the Ottomans, we do not need the Constantinople now. Now we can trade with them directly through the sea. And the king was interested because more trade will get him more profits, more land means I have more chance to spread my territorial expansionism. So that is how the king was happy. अच्छा हुआ ये लोग गए बोट में and they brought this news to me that there are distant lands which I can occupy, distant land which whom I can trade so that I can fill in my coffers. So against the will, against the what you call narrative of the church, the kings what you call supported the voyages, and this is the result of the king's support to the voyages against the will of the church. And this questioning authority to the church's directive for the first time, this questioning authority to the church's directive to the first time when people started thinking rationally. For the first time, people started thinking rationally. We are some 800,000 years away from that. Maybe 2021 or 3021 will start thinking rationally, but they started thinking rationally in 14th, 15th century only. So this is when they started thinking rationally. And let me tell you, 3021 is my under imagination. It may go to 4021 also, to think rationally. Because those three specimens are still in Europe, right? Yeah. Now, when they started thinking rationally, this particular rational thinking in the men led to a movement called Renaissance in Europe. Very, very important word in the European history. This led to a movement called Renaissance in Europe. Basically, rational thinking happened for the first time, wherein against the narrative of the church, the voyagers established that the narrative of the church is wrong and sowed the seeds of questioning the authority of the church and on each and every dimension in the society and economy. Now, everybody is starting questioning. Now, who is feeling insecure? The church is feeling insecure. Now the church is feeling insecure. Gradually, the rationality or the rational thinking went beyond the society and economy when people wanted to question the church even on the dimension of religion. People got a doubt. These guys fooled us for centuries, saying that there is no land beyond the water, saying that you will fall in the well. Probably there is something fishy here also. Then, for the first time when they questioned the authority of the church in the matter of religion, because they said God told do this, God told do this, the people started questioning the church. How did he convey this message to you? How did he convey this message to you? The church said, through the Bible I got this message. Then the people said, we want to read the Bible. This is when the people said, Lao humko bhi do. We will read the Bible. The church said, no, you cannot read the Bible. It is written in a very different language. The people said, okay, very good. Very good. Thank you very much. Translate. That is when the Bible was written in Bhojpuri, Punjabi and Tamil. So that the people understand what is the content of the Bible. And when they read the Bible, they were completely awestruck. These people have fooled us not only in a society and economy dimension, they have also fooled us in the religion. And this is when, this was a time period when press was also invented. So this is when the message of the Bible also got spread. Because earlier what was being taught by the church on the name of religion, it was its self-centered interpretation. Self-centered interpretation with an intention to completely control the mind of the man. So it was missing. There was a value neutrality concept, getting affected here. The church was putting its own value in the interpretation and sending that message to the society with self-centered interpretation, so that the control on the mind of the man is, what you call ensured. So this is first the society question, then the economy question, now the dimension of religious question. When the rational thinking, when the rational thinking was put on the dimension of religion, rational thinking was put on the dimension of religion, it gave birth to another movement called, very important, Reformation. So this is the difference between Renaissance and Reformation. Reforming of what? Reforming of your religion, the belief system. The reforming of the religion, the belief system. Reforming of religion. So from Renaissance, people move to Reformation. Again, who is insecure now? The most important dimension of the church, that he is the direct WhatsApp link with the God, has been disturbed for the first time. The church was okay, chal theek hai yaar, you are trading, you are getting some money, the king is also happy. To some extent the church accepted willingly or unwillingly with a broken heart. But the moment this domain of the church was questioned, the church was furious. The church was furious and it wanted to snub this. The church was furious, and when I say the church was furious, this idiot was still under the control of the church. The church told the king, very important, suppress the people. The church told the king, kill them all, suppress the people. Whosoever raises voice against the church, it is not a good omen. The hell will fall on this land. Please start suppressing the people. Confused guy. These guys are getting me money. I am not thinking of dreaming of ruling India, ruling the Bihari, Punjabi and Tamilian guy. And this guy is telling me to suppress the people. Confused lot. Right? This finally led to a movement called Civil Wars in Europe, where the church and the king are on the one side and the people are on the other side. Where the church and the king are on the one side and the people are on the other side. Okay? Story so far so good? Good. This is bedtime story, right? And not early morning story. This should be bedtime story. Sir, kal se, from tomorrow onwards the class you keep it at 10 o'clock in the night. 10 to 12 I happily go off to sleep. Right? Nobody tells it like this here. What we'll just quickly revise what I have covered in explanation part. These are some of the events that have changed the world. We are today trying to reach till here. My target today is to complete till here. We'll revise it 2-3 times so that you understand. See, if you understand this part of the IR, the rest of the IR is a cakewalk for you. Take it in writing form. Because you will definitely understand why this is happening today. So you understand the concept behind a particular underpinning even today. Today's newspaper, Afghanistan problem. Everything linked somewhere here what has happened in the past. So we will try to understand the fall of Constantinople, this particular thing, and the rise of power politics. And when we talk about the entire your IR perspective related to world history, we will try to end at the post-COVID world order. We will, in a chronological what you call sequence, we will try to cover only from the IR perspective. Again and again I am telling you, I am not teaching you world history. I am teaching you a very small subsection of the world history which shaped the international relations of the world. Okay? Whatever I have spoken since morning, till now democracy has not come. Till now democracy has not come. Okay? Very important event. 1870 unification of Germany happened. So that is very important, the things turn in a very different way. Then we will talk about the Cold War, rise China, Vietnam problem. Actually, this should, come somewhere here. It's wrongly put. This is what it is. Okay? Come again?
PPT मिलेगा सर?
हार्ड कॉपी you'll get. No soft copies. हार्ड कॉपी. सॉफ्ट कॉपी दूंगा तो वो पढ़ेगा नहीं बशीर. My whatever decision I take in my class, I keep Bashir in mind and take the decision. ठीक है? If you feel my decision is wrong, blame him, not. ठीक है? Yeah. So this is the general, Europe in the 14th century. If you see the Holy Roman Empire, this is your Constantinople. I'll show you a blow up also. This is what everything is happening, what we have covered just now. The Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine Empire. Byzantine Empire is basically the eastern fragmented section of the Roman Empire. Is known as the Byzantine Empire. If you see the Western Roman Empire, it fell in 4th century only. But the eastern fragmented sections of the Roman Empire under the name of Byzantine Empire continue till 14th century. Right? So this is the area we are trying to talk. Very important countries, Austria, Hungary. We'll talk about them at very greater length in coming slides. Narrative I have covered this. It can be told by anybody. One dimension of the society I forgot to tell you about was this society was feudal in its nature. Feudal means land-based aristocracy. Very important. Land-based aristocracy. The society's dimension, please you add one more point. The society was basically feudal in its what you call approach, where the land-based aristocracy was what you call supporting the king in taking important decisions. Aristocracy. What crucial role? They played the central role, not crucial role, right? Not only control the human mind, but also the kings. The humans had no right to question the authority of the church. The church primarily tried to instill fear in the minds of the people. It played a critical role in opinion building in the minds of people. Opinion building about what? Opinion building about various dimensions in society and economy both, right? Then the church decided what wars the king should fight, what he should not fight and all. The church also decided whom the king should befriend and whom he should not be a friend of. Very important. The church basically played a central role in the medieval society of the Europe. This central role of church was not only related to the societal narrative of that time, it also had repercussions on the economy of the Europe. We have covered this part. Now the economy. The Europeans were primarily doing trade. We covered this. They were doing trade with the Asians, and one must understand that this trade was an indirect trade. That is, it was happening through intermediaries, the Ottomans, right? These intermediaries were none other than the Ottoman Turks. The Ottomans would buy a product from Asia and sell the product in Europe. In turn, they used to earn commission. The percentage of the profit was huge. It made them economically strong. These intermediaries became economically powerful with this trade, resulting in military prowess of these Ottoman Turks. These Ottomans started expanding their territories, also called as westward expansion towards the European territories, right? This is your Constantinople. This point is your Constantinople. The stretch of Ottomans was somewhere like this initially, but see, over a period of time they have gone eastwards also and westwards also. Eastwards also and westwards also. So they try to take most of the Eastern European what we call area and also major chunk of your Asian region. So that is how the spread of Ottomans was there. Yeah.
Only with that commission they got economical.
Yeah.
But here manufacturing and there was selling.
Yeah. Only the commission. The Europeans does not know 2 रुपए का बिक रहा है उसको या 5 रुपए का मिल रहा है. There is no WhatsApp, no. There is no MRP.
What about the manufacturing?
That's what farmer, no. Poor guy.
Oh, sir, with commission only they have got that much. Then
Yes.
what about their own, like they had manufactured? So
Now that's what, when the dimensions of the trade changed, when they controlled what you will manufacture, when they controlled what these people will manufacture, that is when they traded. They stopped trading with the Europeans through land. They stopped trading with the Europeans through land. It was basically forcing what? Why did I stop trading with the Europeans? I told you, why did I stop trading with the Europeans? One, that second one what? he wants to sell this product in the market here rather than the European selling it. For doing that, I need to get control of this or not? Array, if I have to trade in Europe, will the Europeans keep quiet about it? No. If I have to get trade concessions here, if I have to get privileged access to this market, I need to control this area militarily. So that is how, though the Europeans started venturing, but it does not mean that they have stopped trading here. Getting my point? It is only that earlier Europeans were trading, now in place of them, the Ottomans were trading, and there is no MRP. Now instead of commission, I am getting huge profits. Because this guy was selling it for 50, I was buying it for 10, I was selling it for 50. Maybe I was selling that 50 rupees wala thing in 200 or 250. I wanted that 250 and not 40. So that is the reason why, to have to get privileged access, what I did, first I attacked, then I consolidated my territories. The territories in this dark red were under direct control of them. And the territories in this, when the shade is getting lighter and lighter, it means they have said that we will trade with you, but we will govern, we will give you this much annually. So that is how they expanded their territory. What is the advantage of territorial expansion? You can trade more here, you can force people to produce what you want, what is there in the market demand, and sell it in the highest possible price. Because they did that, whatever they occupied initially, only the period of what you call the place of Constantinople, they were able to spread westward and eastward. Had they been dependent on only commission, maybe they would have limited themselves to Constantinople only. Because they went beyond commission. So that is how they went ahead of it. Okay? Gone. That's what, no. See, that is the reason why the more and more these guys controlling the trade, their strength is reducing. That is why they skirted him and they went to Asia. That is where you understand, when the industrial revolution comes into play, how the dynamics changed. How the dynamics changed. Why? Because this guy started controlling here, this guy started controlling here. Okay? So that's how the twist of turns will happen. Right?
So sir, they stopped trading with Europe.
This is, one second. This is that city of Constantine. Yes.
So you said they stopped trading with Europe.
They did not stop trading with Europe. They traded in their terms now.
Did they buy the products from Asia?
Asia, and they sold in the European, because I have no complete control. Today Pakistan is under my control. Today Afghanistan is under my control. I will sell my IT guy. I will make my IT guy sit in Pakistan and work for US. I will make my IT guy sit in Afghanistan and work for UK. Getting it? Market, privileged market access. Privilege means no competitor. Privilege means I will decide what is to be sent to you. Privilege means I will decide the price at which I will give it to you. Getting it? So instead of those 40 rupees commission, now he is getting 40,000, 4 lakh rupees. That is how the economic strength kept on increasing, and the military strength also kept on increasing. If the economic strength increases, the military strength increases, it will only result into political expansion. That is how the territories got expanded of Ottoman empires. But the problem was, why the Ottoman Empire fell, the primary reason is, they expanded beyond their capability to administer. That is when one segment started falling off. And finally they got restricted to this particular area only, which is called Turkey today. 1923, after the Second World War. When we come to that, we will try to cover that. This is the blow up of your, this Bulgaria and all the Balkans between the Europeans. I will talk about Balkans also at length in couple of minutes to go. The fall of Constantinople also we have covered. In 1453, Ottomans captured the city of Constantinople, which is referred to in the medieval history as the fall of Constantinople and the rise of the Ottomans. Right? The locals started fleeing from there and dispersed. The city completely came under the control of Ottomans. The Europeans at that time became insecure. The trade route between Europe and Asia is now hijacked by the Ottomans. The Europeans were concerned and insecure. They then began to search for new trade routes. The city of Constantinople was the only land route to the east. Now the Europeans were forced to find an alternate route to the east through the sea. Most important. is a word about Byzantine Empire. When I will give you the printout, you can read about it. So now this is where from the European people started reaching the rest of the world. Scattered, reached India. They scattered India, reached the Patal Lok. They found Australia also. Right? So in the Patal Lok they found Australia also. This is how the geographical discoveries happened over a period of time. And this discovery is known as the crown in UK's colonies. In those times it is said that UK plundered $30 trillion from India worth resources. Those times 30 trillion means आज का God only knows. God only knows. The sea expedition resulted in finding the America, Africa, India, Southeast Asia and Australia. This resulted in the discovery of new lands and new people. When these voyages went back to Europe, they told the people and the king that the narrative of the church is wrong, the water does not fall, that there are land beyond the water, geographical discoveries. The kings believed the narrative of these voyages. Some of the kings supported the geographical discoveries even against the wishes of the church. The church became angry. The kings supported the geographical discoveries because they wanted to, very important, they wanted to, why this guy is interfering in my affairs? He is not allowing me to govern. I want to marry that princess. This guy is not allowing me to marry because he is saying you cannot marry. Who is he to decide? It is my wish to marry that particular girl. The girl's family wish whether to give it to me or not. Why the church is deciding? But the church had a complete control on king. So this guy is also frustrated how to get rid of the church. The best thing to get rid of the church is more and more people going out, more and more people coming back, more and more people questioning the authority of the church. I am happy. The king is happy, and the king, it will actually result in the happiness of the king only. We will see in a couple of slides, where the church completely gets restricted to the religion and the king becomes a monarch now. Earlier the church was controlling the king. Now the control has gone because people resented the involvement of church in the society and the cultural and the economic domain landscape of the country. They said nothing doing, tum sala path padho. And the part wo padhao, the lesson that you will teach would be what is actually written and not your interpretation of what is written, because now I have also read the Bible. So even if the church domain has been restricted to religion, again the church did not have the autonomy in religion. It was forced to teach what was written in what you call the Bible from the perspective of a local man's understanding. Why? Because the press enabled the printing of the church in local languages. And the first language it was printed was English, which a common man could read and understand. So the hegemony of the church was lost in the societal landscape, in the economic landscape, and also in the religious landscape. You will remain Panditji, no problem. You will remain father. You teach religion to us, no problem. But teach what is written, not your interpretation of what is written. Okay? So this is the end of the events. Come again?
Church is not the translation.
No. But the church influenced the king about taxation policies. So the suppressing of the people also had the taxation clauses. Okay?
Translation of the Bible to other common languages.
So the church?
Church is not responsible, right?
Responsible in the sense?
Just like church only.
He is asking about translation, sir.
Okay, translation of the Bible into local languages, right? Into other languages. Yeah. See, don't expect that the church can hide what is written. They cannot hide. Because one good guy will be there. He will tell the translation is also wrong. Then the church is gone. Because the religious domain will also go.
The Bible itself.
Yes.
Now after translation also they can do the same thing.
Yes, yeah. The role of the church as a religious preacher continued. But the revived religious preachers. Not your interpretation of with an intention to control the mind of the people. That's what you will remain a Panditji. You will teach my son what is the Bible saying, but you will teach what is actually written in the Bible and not what you feel is written, which is with an intention to control the mind of my child. I don't want this. Because now that I have read, what you are teaching to my child I know. Because the child will tell me, today father ne padhaya. And if you teach something wrong, you will get it from me. So the role of the church as a religious body continued, but in a reformed way. That is why it is called reformation of the religion. So from Renaissance we what you call escalated to Reformation, right? So the king also supported because he was feeling strangulated. The king also felt that the new lands will get him more and more money. The people began to develop the questioning attitude. Therefore, man not only began to question but also tried to develop rational thinking, which finally was, the rational thinking created a sense of verification of the narrative of the church before acceptance. Please write this line. The Renaissance created the rational thinking with a sense of verification of the narrative of the church before it was accepted. So the rational thinking created a sense of verification of the narrative of the church before acceptance. So the moment the church opened its mouth, people say, wait, I'll verify. So the rational thinking created a sense of verification of the narrative of the church before accepting any narrative, whether it was related to your economy, society or religion. So the people started questioning the verification of the church teachings. Very important. The Renaissance was inspired by the geographical discoveries. Can I say the Renaissance was inspired by the geographical discoveries? And can I say the fall of Constantinople gave rise to the geographical discoveries? Had the Constantinople not fallen, will ever the Europeans would have ventured into the sea? No. So that event that would have felt negative at that particular point of time actually sowed the seeds of so many positive things to have happened in the world history over a period of time. Okay. This is the Constantinople. We have already covered this part. This is again. We have covered till Renaissance, the fall of Constantinople, the geographical discoveries and Renaissance. Please, till we have covered only till Renaissance now. We have covered till here, the Reformation. We said that the invention of press popularized Renaissance. Very important. People were speaking about Renaissance now. Renaissance is nothing but your rational thinking. The press only helped in popularizing the concepts of Renaissance. Instead of being dependent upon the sermons from the priest, now man began to read the religious scripts on his own. Bible was translated into languages people could understand. As people read Bible and other scriptures, they found the discrepancies in the written text and the existing narrative. Means the church was false in its narration of the religious teachings also what has been written in the Bible. Man began to question the authority of the church and sought reforms in the functioning of the church. Please make a note of this. At part of Reformation, he wanted reforms in the functioning of the church. When Renaissance entered the domain of religion, it gave birth to Reformation. That Renaissance paved the way for Reformation. Describe how Renaissance paved the way for Reformation. 11 or 12 UPSC question. Okay? So these concepts are very important. Each line can make a question. Okay? So please be attentive. Renaissance paved the way for rise of Reformation. As Reformation affected the authority of church, it led to massive crisis in society. A natural consequence was civil wars, which lasted for many decades and eventually ended in 1648 with the Peace of Westphalia. Please write this paragraph verbatim the way it is written here. Okay, so this Peace of Westphalia, we will try to understand what this Peace of Westphalia did. Very, very important. Whatever today, modern day, whatever we call the tenets of international relations between the countries, they are based on some of the contents of Peace of Westphalia. What we see today, how the nations function in the international framework, somewhere the authority derives from the Peace of Westphalia. This happened in the year 1648, the Peace of Westphalia. Many a times UPSC had asked questions, how the Peace of Westphalia, how the signing of the Peace of Westphalia changed the social, economic and religious landscape of the medieval ages in the European continent. So similar questions have been asked from time to time. Very important. The first and the foremost thing the Peace of Westphalia did was, so this was a nation or a particular state, this Peace of Westphalia said that it separated, very important word, it separated the religion from the governance of the country. It created two segments in the nation wherein it created a separate branch called church which is responsible to control the religious practices or the religious belief system in the society, and the king was made independent of the church. Very important. So earlier whatever the church was controlling the king, this control is gone now. Now the king has become independent of the church. Independent of the church. The king has become independent of the church. Very important. So now what will happen when the king has become independent of the church? Anybody? What is the effect of the king becoming independent of the church?
Right to become monarch.
The first and foremost thing is absolutism. The king was taking independent decisions without having to give any answer to the church. And this particular event led to the establishment of strong monarchies. Strong monarchies. Now the king is at freedom to go for geographical discoveries. The king is at freedom to go for developing trade relations with the rest of the world. Now the king is at freedom to go for expanding his territories. Expanding his territories. So that is how it led to strong monarchies getting developed in the European continent. Right? Strong monarchies in the European continent. What this guy got? What this guy got? What this guy got? The authority to but here you need to understand this is not absolute. People are verifying before accepting. Very, very important dimension. People are verifying before accepting. In this background, something happened which never happened in India. In this background, something happened which never happened in India till today. Both happy to some extent. This guy is heartbroken. Yes. Now the girlfriend controls him completely. But that guy is absolute. No girlfriend control. He married the girl of his choice also. Right? Now, in this background, one thing happened was people said what did I get? This fool got this, that fool got that. What did I get? For the first time, man started thinking about the concentration of some power in a common man, which even today we have not thought of. Okay? People questioned, what did we get? Classic example, India-Pakistan partition. The Muslims got Pakistan, the Hindus got India. What did we get? Was the question, which sowed the seeds of Khalistan movement. So they created a narrative in the minds of the common man. He got Pakistan, he got India. What did you get? You lost your Punjab also, half Punjab. So this is how the narrative about something is put in the minds of people, right? That's what people questioned. मुझे क्या मिला? Now this questioning of what did I get, for the first time, this questioning of what did I get in the history of mankind is known as getting it? Started with Renaissance, went to Reformation, now resulted in what did I get? Some people out of this enlightenment, rational thinking, mind is free, which is not free in India till today. You cannot think rationally, you will be beaten black and blue, right? Mind is free, very important. The mind is free. When the mind is free, a man thinks. Mind is free, the man thinks. This thinking capability of man resulted in innovation. He started inventing things. He started inventing things. So one group in the society of people, they started thinking about innovation, innovating certain things. The other group became philosophers like me. The other group became philosophers. They started talking about the rights of a man. Now, as part of the enlightenment, we saw that the man started questioning what did he get in the entire bargain of this particular Renaissance and Reformation. What did he get? Now, once he started thinking about what did he get, one section of the people started inventing things who were capable of doing this. The other section of the philosophers started talking about the rights of men. When they spoke about the right of man, they spoke about from the perspective of right to govern, the perspective of right to govern and the perspective of right to choose a king. So this are the seeds of modern day democracy. Right to govern and right to choose the king. So from here, the Peace of Westphalia, the basic tenets of democracy, where the people get the right to govern and also the right to choose their king, find their genesis or origin. That is how the Peace of Westphalia for the first time sowed the seeds of democracy, sowed the seeds of modern day democracy, seeds of modern day democracy, seeds of modern day democracy. So far so good? Take care? Yeah. See, things will not happen instantly. There is so much of insecurity this guy is facing. To some extent, this guy is also insecure. Insecure from the church also, insecure from the distant lands also. Why? Because if I can go and contact them, he can also come and contact, right? So the insecurities at both ends. The insecurities at both ends. That is the reason why, to avoid coming of lands coming to my territory, he has to become strong and independent of church. So this will take time. It is not modern times कि आज तुम्हें रेनेजेंस पता चला, तुमने व्हाट्सएप किया, सबको रेनेजेंस के बारे में पता चला.
Actually, press was also appreciating it, Bible and all. Press is also.
Yes, press is not appreciating Bible. Press is see, that is how the Renaissance spread. The Renaissance and this Reformation, they are not commonly timed. See, just imagine the church ruled your mind for centuries. Suddenly you found something which is not in consensus with what the church has told you. You started questioning the church. But will he leave you so easily? हाँ ठीक है यार. Will he accept it? No. He will try to resent the verification of the church's dictates to the common man. So that is how the transformation from Renaissance to Reformation took some time. Why? Because it is only, you don't think कि एक voyager गया, he came back and he told the people accepted. No. Going and coming is a big thing, right? So where did he go? Whom did he meet? There is so much of verification. The church will try to negate what that guy is telling in his narrative, because the church wants to control the narrative in the society. So that is how by the time this controlling of narrative, what you call, reduces from the point of view of church, it will take time. Because questioning the church narrative on the religion is like questioning the God. The problem today is, see, in this today's world, you have seen people fighting for Gita and Quran. But the anomaly is, you have never seen people reading, people who are fighting for Quran and Gita having reading them. Did you ever see them? I'm 1000% sure that they would have never read. But they are fighting for Gita and Quran. So like this, these people have read the Bible in their own dimension. Now because a common man questioned, and because the questioning does not happen that today he questions by evening, church said okay, this is not the practice, this will be the practice. That's the reason why the church said suppress the people. Because the church told the king, if you do not suppress the people, I will remove you. The church had the authority. Getting it? So this guy is the most confused lot of all. So he will take time to understand, should I suppress the people or not? It took lot of time. Though we said that it resulted in absolute what you call monarchism, it was a gradual process. It did not happen overnight. The unification of Germany happened 1870. This is happening in 1648. 230 years span is there. So it takes time for these things to, it is in 14th century, understanding. Don't understand from Facebook and WhatsApp time frame. So this is happening in 14th century, 16th century, 17th century. So 1648 peace of Westphalia happened, 1870 the unification of Germany happened. So 230 years ka gap hai. But gradually the king got more and more and more and more in powers. So that is how it is a gradual transformation. It is not instant. So that is why from Renaissance to Reformation you will see a time gap, right? And from Reformation to Enlightenment you will also see a time gap. Things are not happening at the fall of the hat. It will take time for things to dwell into society. It is not WhatsApp University, Gaya, right? Where was I? Yeah. Bol.
What is the exact difference between Renaissance and Enlightenment?
See, Renaissance is about you started thinking rationally. For the first time, you felt that I can, question the church, get a doubt about what church is saying. First time, your parents say, beta, what you call, this is good, this is bad. As a child, you will never question them. And if your friend is not doing what your parents told, you will come and tell your parents he did like this, but you told this is what it is, right? But when you go to college, when you see the world, you start questioning the narrative of your parents. Yes or no? So it happens with your understanding. So Renaissance is for the first time you saw the world different from what your parents told you. And then you feel, am I out of place or they out of place? Getting it? So the Renaissance is just the seed of ability to think, because earlier the church controlled the thinking capability of the man. Even today, that's why I told in India it will take 800 more years. Why? Because even today we think from the religious teachings of us. For us to think rationally, like if I talk about Sikhism, why the talwar or kripan was given? Because there was complete law and order problem during that time. And the man without a weapon is like the branch of the tree, he can be taken anywhere. But if there are thorns on the tree, can you remove the branch anywhere the way you wish to? So the weapon was given in the hands of a person to defend himself and to defend who is in need of some support against the lawlessness in the society. Now you tell me today there is everything established, do I need to carry a weapon today? But still the constitution has given me the right. So people are not thinking rationally even today. So many dimensions of non-vegetarianism, we'll talk about this in ethics. See, the non-vegetarianism was developed at a places where geographically there was no possibility to have agriculture. So they have to survive, they ate non-vegetarian. But today in places like India where you have so much of agriculture, is there a point of being non-vegetarian? When your body design has not been designed for being a non-vegetarian. Getting it? The biggest distinction between whether you are designed to be a non-vegetarian or not is whether you are sipping the water or gulping the water. Whether you are licking the water or how do dogs drink water? How do the canines drink water? Can they pick up the glass and drink? They can never. They use their tongue to drink. This system, the intestine system is also completely different. But you have done that. In the process of evolution we have learnt it. So Renaissance is only that first seed that man can think. कि मैं सोच सकता हूं कि the sun rises in the east, not in the west. That this is the truth, this is not the truth. That there is land beyond waters. So the church controlled the mind of the man. Today nobody is controlling your mind other than your parents to some extent in some dimensions of your life. Other than that your mind is free. But this mind was not free initially. For a fundamentalist, for a terrorist, is his mind free? No. Some people with vested interests are controlling his mind. The day his control of mind is gone, you have seen this movie Master recently? He is controlling the mind of the small kids by keeping them in intoxication mode. He does not want them to think, because when that recording happens the child tells, no, I have only understood things in the last 2 days. What is happening around me? So for the first time the people in the 15th century, mid of 15th century started thinking actually what is happening around me. Why this church is telling me like this? So this is the first seed of your ability to think as a man. So that's what I said, we will take another 800 years to start thinking.
In India too, sir, that started in 6th century BC only with the rise of Buddhism and Jainism.
See, that was from the dimension of what is good and what is bad. From the dimension when we are talking about the medieval European history, where we are talking from the perspective of international relations, how it developed. So this is where for the first time man started thinking, okay, ऐसा होना चाहिए. This is, I am not saying that this is what the first time man started thinking in this particular geographical area, because they were in isolation. Whatever trade was happening through intermediaries, they were in complete isolation. So for the first time in this geographical area, man started thinking in that particular time frame that I can think what the church, think beyond what the church is saying. So that was for the first time in the modern day European, this thing we say that this is when the man started thinking. That is why we say we are much more older culture than the others, right? When I say man belonging to this particular geographical area, I am not saying overall man started thinking, right? Yeah, you wrote this paragraph, the Treaty of Westphalia, and what is the outcome of the Treaty of Westphalia we will try to understand. The post 1648, very important slide from the examination point of view. What happened, what changed? The nation state that eventually began to rise were strong monarchies, because now the king is independent of the church, and then the role of church is limited to religion, and this is also not absolute. Limited to religion, where the man had the authority to question the religious preachings of the church here. The king became an independent and absolute monarch, very important. In this background, people are reasoning and independent. One group of people focused on innovation leading to invention in the backdrop of free mind. This innovative group began to innovate machines, right? And the other group became philosophers. They started arguing what the people got in this entire bargain. The church got the control of religion, the king acquired all the power and became absolute ruler. What did the people get? So for the first time they said people got nothing, people have no rights to govern, people have no right to elect their king. They started sowing the seeds of democracy. These philosophers created a movement called enlightenment. When you start thinking what did I get, that is when you started thinking, rationally. Enlightenment has happened. All this combined and paved the way for industrial revolution in the Europe. And this industrial revolution paved the way for colonization. Right? Now getting the story? You people are good at listening to stories here. जब story बोलता हूँ तो silently you people listen without any. I am trying to explain these civil wars. Basically, when I use the word civil war, basically the church and king on one side and the people on the opposite side. In this, the most confused was the king because he was thinking, shall I suppress my own people or not, right? The church was pressurizing the king. These civil wars were eventually ended in 1648 by signing the Peace of Westphalia. And what did the Peace of Westphalia did? First and foremost, it separated religion from politics. Thank you very much, Peace of Westphalia. Otherwise, Modi would have been fighting from the Hindutva chair and somebody from some other chair, right? So that is how religion got separated from politics, 1648. But also paved way for stability. Why? Because the king became more and more what you call absolute and started getting more and more territories under his control and started interacting with the distant worlds. With this, domain of the church and the king were separated, where church was only concerned with the practice and prophecy of the religion and the king was involved in politics. So politics came under directly under the king without the interference of the church. This system gave rise to the concept of nation state. This system gave rise to the concept of nation state. Very, very important. This is very important. Which system? The separation of religion from politics, which happened as a result of the signing of Peace of Westphalia, which was the result of the civil wars. So many years of civil wars, which finally paved the way for your industrial revolution. The first industrial revolution, 1760 to 1820. Now in this backdrop of industrial revolution happened something else. In the backdrop of this industrial revolution happened something else. And what is this something else? Because the industrial revolution 1 happened in the time period of 1760 to 1820. It is not that it stopped here, it continued beyond that. But this is considered to the period of peak industrialization. Industrialization with the support of innovative thinking, where the man is thinking and is able to make some machines. Because of this, industrialization happened. Industrialization is nothing but the ability to mass produce through the use of machines. For the first time in the period 1760 to 1820, this industrialization happened. And now when the man developed this industrialization, what is the background now? What is the society now? This is Europe. This is Europe. What is the landscaping in the society now? The landscaping is from the economic point of view. It has resulted in geographical discoveries. Geographical discoveries have happened. It means that resources have come from distant lands, where the resources have come from distant lands. Distant land resources have come. Now you have machines with you. Now you have machines with you. What he is doing? He is adding the resources and the machines, now able to mass produce. Now able to mass produce. Right? Now, because the king was able to take decisions without the interference of church, he was taking quick decisions when it came to trade with rest of the world. So the resources that were coming in for being, producing in the machines, they started dwindling fastly, means reducing fastly. This is when the king thought of, having the control on the resources. So that's what I told now. What is colonization? Colonization is nothing but controlling the political and economic activity of a state in particular country's favor. So this is for the first time the kings ventured into the world not with an intention to trade but with an intention to colonize so that he can support his industrial revolution. He can support his industrial revolution back home, and through this industrial revolution again the king interacted with the world in the form of finished goods. In the form of finished goods. This is what our colonial masters did with us. This is what our colonial masters did with us. Right? Colonization is nothing but expanding the territorial reach of your country beyond your own geographical boundaries in a way that it will benefit your own country. So this finally industrial revolution led to colonization of the world, and also one more important concept called scramble of the world. What is this scramble of the world? What is the meaning of scramble? You scramble the eggs, no? The complete hodgepodge. The complete scramble means disturbance of the world order. Disturbance of the world order. Complete disturbance of the world order. I told you, the 19th century is the period of imperialism and colonization. This was the time period. In this background, in 1870, a country called Germany got unified. Germany's unification happened in 1870. That changed the complete landscape of Europe for another 120 years to come. Right? Yes, Sue.
Whenever we sign a treaty,
Whenever we find a
whenever we
sign a treaty,
there will be parties in that, right?
yes.
So, who were the parties to this treaty of Westphalia?
See, the Treaty of Westphalia is between it. See, when it is said, that is the reason why many a times in place of Treaty of Westphalia you use the word in the literature of historical this thing. They did not write Treaty of Westphalia, they wrote Peace of Westphalia. Why peace? Because church is fighting, king is fighting, people are fighting. So it is like codification of the law. The Peace of Westphalia is not between two parties. The church did not sign and the king did not sign. It is basically trying to codify in a society who will do what. That is why this has been termed as the Peace of Westphalia, where they wanted that the king's role should be limited to this, the church role should be limited to this, the man is free to think, with certain rights to govern, certain rights to elect who will be the king. So the peace has been established between three important elements in the society: the church on one side, the king on one side, and the people on the other side. So it is like giving it to themselves, like our own constitution. Nobody signed the constitution on behalf of India and then on behalf of some other country. No, we gave it to ourselves. The same way the Peace of Westphalia was given to the people of Europe for themselves at that particular point of time, delineating who will do what in this particular society. Right?
Who did this?
The kings, because he got the right to govern. No, he got the right to govern. So a codification of anything will happen by the king only, the monarch only. So that is how when the unification of Germany happened, that is why we don't say the church did the unification of Germany. Obviously it is the king who did the unification of Germany. So any treaty, if it was to be signed between a country and another country, obviously the king will sign, the church will not sign. So it is the king who will do the codification of laws. And even the translation of the Bible was also done under, though the technicality part was done under the supervision of the church and the clergy, but the work related part, the executive part was done under the supervision of the king. He also wanted the hegemony of the church to fall, because so that he becomes more independent. So he ensured that it is written exactly the way it is written, translated exactly the way it is written, and not translated in the benefit of the church, because he wanted to reduce the might of the church in the society for his good, so that the nation progresses as a nation state and monarchies develop. So that is how one monarchy which developed was Germany, right? With this we go to the some questions I think I have made. We'll just see if we can we say the Industrial Revolution was driven by the forces that unfolded after the Peace of Westphalia, the inventions fused with enlightenment and discovery of resource rich lands, along with clear directions to exploit the resources from the distant lands by absolute monarchies, created a wave called industry. Please make a note of this paragraph. Please make a note of this paragraph. Most important. What is the clear direction? To exploit. The clear direction is to exploit. We'll go a little ahead from here, another 15-20 minutes I'll talk, then we'll close for the day. And tomorrow also the story will continue till the post-Cold War, then we'll move into the next topic. We'll start the foreign policy of India under various prime ministers and all, okay? Done? Faster, faster. Photograph? Written? Good. Doctors are fast to write here, because nobody understands what they write. I hope they understand what they write. And this is about the industrial revolution sowing the seeds of for colonization. The monarchs continue to support the scientific thought, rationalism and modernism. This led to the rise of new intellectual movement called Enlightenment in Europe, which became the foundation for the Industrial Revolution. The monarchs also continued the commercial trade with Asia. As Europe entered the dawn of industrial age, it needed more resources which were not enough in Europe to fulfill the growing appetite of the economic landscape of Europe. The need for resources compelled the Europeans to colonize distant lands of Asia, Africa and Far East. Thus began the era of globalization in the 19th century. The Industrial Revolution created conditions for colonialism. The race of colonization began with Europeans racing against each other. Literally Britain, France, Germany, they all raced against each other to get more and more what you call colonies under their control. When the French, Spain and the Dutch concentrated more on Africa and the American continent, countries like Britain and France concentrated more on India and the Southeast Asia. And the Britishers colonized India and Myanmar. French colonized Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam and all. So that is how this led to this scramble of the world, disturbing the world order, and created conditions for, very important line, you should not miss this line when you write the answer. This created conditions for insecurity in Europe. Why? How this insecurity will unfold? This led to a period of insecurity in Europe. One event that actually sowed the seeds of insecurity in Europe is your unification of Germany. Tomorrow when you come for the class, I'll try to get these slides printed and handed over to you. Once you get these slides, I suggest read them word by word 5 to 6 times, so that sequencing gets into your mind. The moment the sequencing gets into your mind, any question from the concept asked from the international relations perspective, you can happily write without even knowing what has happened in the current affairs part of it. Okay, you will be able to write something or the other, right? Now what happens is, as I told you, if this is a state, Germany, this was the state of Germany with some territories scrambled here and there. But now if these territories get unified, say there was one territory here, there was one territory here, one territory here and one territory here. Now if all these territories come under a common umbrella, what has happened here? What has happened here? Territorial expansion happened. The territorial expansion happened. Now this territorial expansion, what it will create in the other countries? It will create this happened. This unification of Germany happened in the year 1870. There are certain territories like Prussia, Saxony, and all this got unified under a common territory under a great ruler called Otto I Bismarck. This guy Bismarck unified the Germany. This created shivers down the line, the spine of countries like Britain, countries like France got shit scared. And what that guy did was, the moment this unification happened, he immediately attacked France. See, what happened in the process of unification? The moment you get unified, you get more land. The moment you get more land, you get more resource. The moment you get more resource, you get economically rich. The moment you get economically rich, you get militarily rich. Now you will gather the courage to attack. And this guy attacked France, right? And the reason for attacking France was he wanted availability of resource in the neighborhood. Availability of resource in the neighborhood, because a territory in a small part in the France called Alsace-Lorraine. This was the territory. I will show it in map also to you. This was the territory the Germans attacked to get as part of that, because this territory was rich in natural resources, especially coal. And if you know the phase of first and second phase industrial revolution, it was primarily driven by coal. It was primarily driven by coal. And this guy did not stop here. The moment he attacked France, see, ability to think, we still don't have. The moment he attacked France, he knew that France will retaliate. What he intelligently did was, the moment he attacked France, in 1870-71 he attacked France. In 1879 he got into an alliance with Austria-Hungary. Very, very important. Can anybody answer why Austria-Hungary? I will cover this part and we will close for today. Okay. Some extent he is there, I will try to explain it, don't worry. Why Germany wanted, we don't want it, don't worry. Why Germany wanted an alliance with Austria-Hungary, why Austria-Hungary was okay with an alliance with Germany, we will try to understand. Okay? If you see the European map, say if this is Europe, for example, the board is small, sorry, the Europe cannot be so big. Say this was Europe, say Germany was somewhere here, Austrian-Hungary Empire was here, and again in the eastern fringe of Austrian-Hungary there was an empire called Habsburg Empire. Okay, just remember that. So somewhere here in the tip was your Habsburg Empire. Now between them there was a land called Balkans. Please understand this part of the history, very important. And to the east of Balkans was your great continent Asia, right? Now France was somewhere here, Alsace-Lorraine was a territory here which the Germans attacked in 1870-71 and brought it under its control. Okay? Now the Balkans, if you can see, it was again in the trade route between, again the trade route between Asia, trade route between with Asia, right? So very important for the European countries from the perspective of trade. Balkans was important. Now here on the top was your big brother Russia, and Russia had imperial control on the Balkans. Balkans means countries like Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia, countries like Greece, Slovenia, so many other countries. Algeria is in Africa. Okay? Slovenia and all countries are here. There are some other countries you need not know. But you should know that is Balkans was a land where the Russians had imperial control. Right? Now, this was an important trade route between Europe and Asia. Now, what had happened was when the the Germans attacked the French, they knew that France will definitely retaliate. And this was the time when many countries were eyeing for an alliance with Austria-Hungary because of its strategic location between the Asia and the Europe. Because of the strategic location, very important. Strategic location between this thing. Europe में Germany only preempted this alliance. It means that the other countries also here wanted an alliance with Austria-Hungary. It was that Germany who took the initiative to form the alliance with Austria-Hungary. Now the question comes is, why Austria-Hungary in the first place signed an alliance with Germany? The fear was when the Russians had what you call imperial control over the Balkans, the Russians also desired to have imperial control over the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. To hedge against Russia, very important word, to hedge against Russia, Austria-Hungary signed an alliance with Germany in the year 1879. Very important year in the history, modern day history. This is the classic example of an alliance out of fear of insecurity from Russia, out of fear of insecurity from an attack from France. Okay, so this insecurity led to the formation of alliance between Austria-Hungary and Germany in the year 1879. So this alliance between Austria-Hungary in the year 1879 is called as Dual Alliance. Dual Alliance. Right? It was also called the Alliance of the Central Powers. If you see the map of Europe, Germany and Austria-Hungary kind of in the central part of the Europe. So at times this alliance was also referred to as the Alliance of the Central Powers. Right? There was one country in the immediate south called Italy. You know, if you see the map when you go back home, please see the map also. Right? They said that Italy as a country had colonial or ambitions over a territory called Northern African country called Libya. Right? And immediately neighboring Libya, there were some countries where French colonies were there. Algeria, Morocco and all. Okay? Where French had colonial interests there, and they had colonial interest there in these countries, which was bordering Libya. Italy knew that if it wants to fulfill its colonial interests in Libya, definitely France will object to it, because it will not want another European country coming closer to my own colonies, right? So to hedge against France, Italy wanted to hedge against France. To hedge against France, Italy joined this dual alliance in the year 1882, making it a triple alliance of Germany, Austria-Hungary plus Italy. Again what happened? Insecurity. Who became insecure? France and Britain. Both became insecure. More importantly, France became insecure. France को लगा अब मेरी मौत है. Now the well has come. What the church told 400 years before, now the actual well has come. Now France started looking for alliances. France and Britain, if you know the colonial history, France and Britain, they are colonial rivals. They are colonial rivals. They had lot of territorial disputes in the colonies, not between themselves. They had lot of territorial disputes in the colonies, especially that Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos belt. They had lot of territorial disputes. French knew that British may not be the right person to form an alliance, because firstly he may not form, there are so many differences, so should not go for Britain. He went for Russia. French said, France went to Russia, बोला भाई दोनों वोडका पिएंगे रात में, ठीक है, and we will form an alliance. In the year 1893, France and Russia formed an alliance. 1893, France and Russia formed an alliance. Now who got isolated? Now Britain की फटने लगी, बोला यार मैं अकेला रह गया. Gradually Britain convinced France, we will settle all our colonial disputes, come and form an alliance with me. France said, are you सही बोल रहा है ना? Will you do it? But no. Everything given you ask, I will give it to you in the colonies, but come and form an alliance with me, because he is scared. Germany is unified and under triple alliance, right? Triple alliance of Austria-Hungary with Italy and Germany, unified Germany. So Britain wanted to do something immediately. Why? Because it was feeling insecure. So finally in 1904, France and Britain signed an alliance. Now Russia got isolated. Russia said, what is this nonsense here? Salat. Russia got isolated.
Russia is with France.
That's what. He left France.
Left France.
The France left Russia and signed a alliance with Britain. Russia said, you had my vodka also here. You promised so many things. दोनों भाई गाड़ी लेके घूमेंगे everything. But suddenly you change sides. He said, nothing doing. I am going with France. I have my own colonial interest to be taken care of. Now Russia felt insecure. Russia continued persuading France to sign what you call alliance with him. So France, tired of Russia, took Russia to Britain. चला जा, चलते हैं. When he went to Britain, Britain said, sorry, I cannot take you on board because of absence of common values. If you know Russia of that time, Russia was and Britain was absence of common value. Yours is a non-market economy. You control the entire market. Mine is a kind of market economy. So these are two dimensions where they had the biggest clash in the common values. Russia said, yaar, tu bata, what is the way out? France said, tell Britain what is the way out. He said he need to carry out some reforms, give some freedom of speech, bring in some democratic values. Russia said, okay. From 1904 till 1907, there was lot of reforms in Russia under the name of Glasnost and Perestroika. Actually, Russia carried out reforms. because it was dying for this alliance, and it knew that if it does not carry out these reforms, it will get isolated in the entire game and it will continue to feel insecurity. It carried out reforms, and finally in the year 1907, France, Russia and Britain came into an alliance called Triple Entente. Entente is friendship basically. Triple Entente. Got it? Now began the real game, when both sides formed alliances. Just imagine what they have done to the world. So on one side you have Germany, Italy and Austria-Hungary. On the other side you have Russia, France and Great Britain. Okay? So from 1453, as I promised in the morning, 1907. Okay? Now we will try to revise everything in one slide. Fall of Constantinople led to geographical, please write with me, geographical discoveries led to led to very important. Here we also have the piece of the growth of democratic principles. Growth of democratic principles. Absolute monarchies, the growth of nation states. Then because of the enlightenment and the growth of nation states, you have innovation happening. With innovations came inventions, and with inventions came industrial revolution. With industrial revolution came colonization. With colonization resulted in scramble of the world order. With this it sowed the seeds of insecurity. With this resulted in यहाँ तक समझ में आया?